Good evening and welcome to Byju's exam prep. Welcome to Byju's IAS. So hope I'm audible as well as visible to you all, right? So this is a webinar on ecology and environment, right? So hope I'm audible as well as visible. Please confirm. Good evening, good evening, good evening. Done. So today we'll be taking off a good amount of topics with reference to environment and ecology. So here I'll be discussing more with reference to prelims perspective. Prelims perspectives, right? Now I'll be taking up a few topics which were there in the news, and they are about deserts, a movement, Chipko movement, where it has completed 50 years, and golden trevally, a fish, then a term called as beast from the east, then something about a carbon capture plant, then species which are in the news like gharials, again a fish then also something about green methanol, Conver Lake, which is also again in the news. Then a method, which is called as a Dida method. Then a sanctuary, Gandhi Sagar Wildlife Sanctuary, which is also in the news. Then a new sanctuary which was created in Tamil Nadu, new sanctuary, wildlife sanctuary. Then something about World Wildlife Day. Then a private zoo which has been created, which can be the world's largest zoo, which can make asylum for the animals which have been wounded. And this is from Reliance Foundations. We'll see something about that. Then species like Ibera lynx, then spaces like Rudrasagar Lake, Sirpur wetlands, and Pench Tiger Reserve. So we'll try to understand them with prelims perspective. Now, the first one is the Arakulam Desert. Now, when we talk about Arakulam Desert, you should remember that this Arakulam Desert is newly created desert. So it is world's youngest desert. And it is referred as ecological disaster. Ecological disaster. Now, where the ecological disaster has taken place? This ecological disaster has taken place in a sea, in a lake, which is referred as Aral Sea or Aral Lake. Aral Sea or Aral Lake. Now, this Aral Sea was the fourth largest water body, was fourth largest water body. And this Aral Sea was endorheic lake. This Aral Sea was endorheic lake. Now, what do you mean by endorheic lake? Endorheic lake. Any water body which is fed by the streams from outside, we refer that as endorheic lake. Any water body which is fed from outside, rivers or streams, we refer that as endorheic lake. So Aral Sea is an endorheic lake, and this is fed by mainly two river streams, and these two rivers are the Sirdarya and Amudarya, which used to provide water to this Aral Sea. Now, because of the need for water for irrigation, so the Soviet Union at that time, they wanted water for irrigation. So they diverted the river water for irrigation. They diverted the river water for irrigation, that is agriculture. Irrigation for cotton plantations. And this made the deficiency of water in the Aral Sea. And slowly, the part of Aral Sea started to dry up. Slowly, the part of Aral Sea started to dry up in the southern part. And that created the man-made desert. And that created the man-made desert. Even though this man-made desert is smaller than natural desert, it is smaller than natural desert. If you see the area of that, it is roughly around 60,000 square kilometers. Even though it is smaller than natural deserts, but still it is in the news because of the pollution what it is creating. Now, as this lake dried up or the sea dried up, large amount of pesticides and fertilizers entered into that. So here we find large amount of fertilizers and pesticides entered into that. And these pesticides and fertilizers, they created the toxic dust. They created the toxic dust in that areas. Right? Toxic means poisonous one. Poisonous. And at present, because of its dryness in the region here, it has become a major source of dust in that area. So this Aral Sea, which was the fourth largest, when it has converted into desert, it has become the major source of the dust today. Major source of dust. And this dust is not the normal dust. It is the toxic dust. And also this dust consisted of certain salts, which are spread from the Aral desert, that is Arakum desert, towards the other parts. And this dust is spreading in all the areas. As the wind carries them, they are reaching to many parts. So this dust is reaching to many parts, long distance. Like it has reached even to Antarctica. It has reached even to Antarctica. And recently they have found the traces of this Arakum desert even in penguins. They have found the traces of these dust, which consisted of fertilizers as well as the salts. The toxic is found in the penguins of Antarctica, which is dangerous in the concern of environment. And sometimes when it is carried by the wind with high volume or with bulk of that, it created something called as dome-like structures, dust domes. So when it is carried bulky, it creates dust dome-like winds. Dust dome-like winds. And generally such winds are referred as the black blizzards in Antarctica. Black blizzards in Antarctica. In Antarctica. So this you should remember. Right. So this fertilizers entered when the streams were cut, the water from the rivers, the irrigated land, the water accumulated there, and then that water entered back to the lake here because of slope densities and all. And also the wind carried them. So this large amount of fertilizers and the pesticides accumulated on the neighboring areas, and that was carried by the wind. And every year, bulk of the dust is carried. Around 100 million tons of dust is carried every year. So annually, bulk of dust is carried by the winds. Now, apart from that, one more problem associated with the dust here is, now when you talk about the dusts, these dusts have major properties. We refer them as radiative properties. Some of the dust particles, they can absorb the heat, and some dust particles, they can reflect back so that it can make cooling effect. Now, as this dust particles, they are near the surface, as these dust particles in the surrounding areas of Arakum deserts, as they are near the surface, so they are making two important entities. In the daytime, they are making cooling effect that is radiative cooling is done because of nature of the dust particles. In the daytime, they are giving cooling effect. But the same dust particles in the night, they behave differently. In the night, these dust particles, they absorb long wave radiations which are radiated back by the earth. They absorb the long wave radiations, and hence in the night they create warming sensation. So in the night they make warming effect, radiative heating. So in the night they make warming effect. We refer that as radiative heating. Radiative heating. So this is about the world's youngest and newest desert, which is also referred as ecological disaster. And this is mainly due to the agricultural activities, diversion of the rivers. And this Aral Sea is located in the northeastern side of Caspian Sea. See this. Northeastern of Caspian Sea. Is that clear? So these are the terms which you should remember in the context of your prelims examination, right? The dust becomes toxic because as the chemical reaction takes place between the remnants of the fertilizers and the pesticides. So the fertilizers and pesticides, they are having many chemicals. So the chemicals of these, they make the dust toxic. And also the salts which are dangerous in that regions. Is that clear? Okay. Cooling occurs in the daytime because the dust particles which are near the surface, they are having a more amount of albedo factor. So as they are having more albedo, they are reflecting more in the daytime. But during the nighttime, they have the capacity of absorbing the long wave terrestrial radiations. So during the daytime, we find insolation is short waves. Insolation is short waves. Is it clear? So warming, understand this. When we talk about the dust particles, so these dust particles, sometimes we refer them as aerosols also. Now these dust particles, they are having the characteristics of absorbing, reflecting, radiating, etc. Now based on the dust particles, where they are found, whether near the surface or at great height. Second, based on their composition, what they are made up of, whether they are made up of white particles, black particles, and their chemical composition, based on their composition. Third, based on the time, whether it is daytime or whether it is the night, based on the time of day, whether it is day or whether it is night, based on the altitudes, based on composition, based on times of a day. So the dust particles, they behave two different ways. Some of the dust particles, if they are at greater height, they behave like radiative cooling. And the same dust particles, when they are near the Earth's surface, when they absorb the large amount of terrestrial radiations, they behave like the radiative heating effect. So these characteristics, along with many, they define the property of the dust, whether it is having radiative heating effect, that means warming sensation, which absorbs more amount of radiations, or they are having radiative cooling effect. Cooling means their albedos, reflectivity, albedo. Right. So when they reflect the insolation, then beneath that region will always have cooling sensation, like what you have studied in ecology and environment called as aerosol masking. Right. So these properties like albedo and all, so they define whether the dust particles behaves like radiative heating or radiative cooling. But here in the desert, these dust particles are near surface. So hence their behavior is different. In the daytime, they give the cooling sensation, but during the night, they become radiative heating. Is that clear? Okay. Now, next one is, this is the write-up of that. Right. So whatever I told, I have given you in the writing. Right. So just understand the properties of the dust. So all depends on their composition. In geography or in your ecology and environment, you have studied about dark aerosols and white aerosols. You know, white aerosols, they are having high albedo, whereas the dark aerosols, they are having less albedo. They absorb more amount of the radiations, and also how they behave in their characteristics. Now you should be surprised if you see the carbon dioxide. This carbon dioxide in the lower atmosphere, it is net absorber. But if you take the same carbon dioxide at great height, then rather than absorbing, it is a cooler. It becomes cooling agent when it emits large amount of radiation. So the place where they are found also determines their radiative efficiencies. Right. And they also have health effects when they reach to the regions. So hence these dust particles, they are creating something called as warming effect. They are creating health effects to the local people in that area. So this is, sometimes they may give the statements. So use them appropriately. Is that clear now? So how it is warming and how it is cooling effect. It is based on the properties, the altitude, their composition. Right. Now, Chipko movement. Now, the movement, when we say Chipko movement, you should remember that this movement is associated with hugging of the trees to avoid their cutting. Hugging of the trees to avoid deforestation. Cutting or deforestation. Now, this Chipko movement was in the year March 26, 1974. And we celebrated 50th anniversary of that. 50 years of Chipko elements was there. Chipko movement. Now, this Chipko movement, which started on March 26, 1974, in a village called as Rainy Village. In the village, Rainy Village. And this is in this Rainy Village is at present in Uttarakhand. Right. And Chamoli district. And hence this Rainy Village is referred as cradle of Chipko movement. Cradle of Chipko movement. Right. Now this Chipko movement, it got inspiration from one of the important movement or environmentalist movement which was before the independence. So this is after independence. It got inspired from the environmentalist movement which was in the year 1730 at the present state of Rajasthan, called as Bishnoi movement. Bishnoi movement. Any word you can use. Bishnoi movement. Now this Bishnoi movement was by Bishnoi tribes. And in India, the Bishnoi tribes are referred as the first environmentalists of India. First environmentalists of India. And this Bishnoi tribe, they follow the preachings of Guru Jambeshwars. They follow the preachings of Guru Jambeshwar. Where he provided 29 principles. And these 29 principles, they talk about many points, but among them, the important one are associated with the conservation of nature, protecting the life, protecting the animals, conserving the animals in the neighboring areas. So out of that, many points were associated with the conservation of nature, protecting of animal life, etc. So hence, they adopted these principles and they are referred as the environmentalists or the first environmentalists of India. Now, during 1730, the local king asked his people to cut the trees there and to establish a building. So on the mark of that, the king's people entered into this region in Rajasthan and they started felling or cutting up of the trees, generally the Khejrali trees in Rajasthan. Now many people opposed that, and ultimately we have a person called as Amrita Devi, led by many supporters. They reached to the site and they hugged the trees. But in spite of that hugging, Amrita Devi, along with many people, was massacred. In spite of that, they were massacred. And later king came to that area and he realized the mistake what he has done. And hence, this aspect of the massacre which was done. So in the remembrance of their in the sacrifice what is done by them, in the remembrance of their sacrifice. Every year we celebrate National Forest Martyrs Day. Now, can anybody tell me which date is that? National Forest Martyrs Day. National Forest Martyrs Day. Right. And this is very important in the context of protection and conservation of the forest area. So it is the first way where the deforestation was opposed by the local people. Right. So don't get confused. March 26 is the date when it was done. And this massacre day was celebrated from September 11. So September 11 is celebrated every year as the National Forest Martyrs Day. National Forest Martyrs Day. Is that clear? So this aspect made an eye-opener to the king that environment is also very important, concerned with economic perspectives. And hence, the lesson was learned that if prominent leadership qualities, along with group of people, when they organize a movement to protect and conserve the nature, by putting the pressure, by bringing the people, the local people within them, which can make the things to happen in that. And that's how the environmentalist movements were started with perspective in India. And this became most successful. After that, king understood his mistake, and then it was late, but yet it provided something about deforestation perspectives. And this inspiration was taken up in the year 1974, where they initiated the Chipko movement against the large amount of deforestation which was there in the region at present Uttarakhand. And the prominent leaders of this Chipko movement prominent leaders of this Chipko movement. Can anybody define leaders? Sundarlal Bogun, Chandi Prasad, Gauri Devi, etc. Right. So Gauri Devi or Gora Devi were there. Now, next is why this movement is very important. Why this movement is important. Right. Now, sometimes they may ask in the part. Now, this is non-violent resistance against deforestation. It is non-violent resistance against deforestation. Right. Second one is it is to find the right of the local people to the forest resources. To find the right of local people to the forest resources. Third, the significance of this is, so it shows the successful female participation and leadership. Successful female participation and leadership. Right. Fourth, it also talks about crucial role of women in grassroots environment activities. Crucial role of women in grassroots environmentalist movement. Environmentalist movement. And it also talks about importance of decentralized decision making. Importance of decentralized decision making through community participation. Through community participation. So these are the significance of the Chipko movement. And this Chipko movement become inspiration of one of the movement which is seen in the southern part of India. This Chipko movement become inspiration for one of the movement in the southern part of India. Can anybody name that, which is there in the Western Ghats? In the Western Ghats of Karnataka. Yes, Appika movement. Appika movement. So this become inspiration. So remember, Vishnovi movement become inspiration for Chipko movement. And Chipko movement become inspiration for Appika movement. More specifically in Karnataka or Western Ghats. And the prominent person associated with the Appika movement is Pandurang Hegde. Pandurang Hegde. Is that clear? Now, this is something which you have to remember in the context of the Chipko movement, right? So, 50 years, prominent leaders, Rainy Village, cradle of the Chipko movement, and its important references. And this become the inspiration for the Western Ghats, where also we find large amount of deforestation activities there. Now, in the mains also you can put this. The environmentalist approach towards making effort in reducing the deforestation activities, right? So make the statements very carefully, read them very carefully. So whenever when you're reading, read them carefully, revise them one time, two times, three times, then it becomes easy for you to keep them for a longer period of time, right? Now, golden trevally, sometimes they may ask only this, what is this golden trevally, or What is this Nathadam species? So it is about a fish. It is about a fish, right? Directly they may ask. So this has been developed, seed production has been done by two prominent institutions. One is Indian Council of Agriculture Research and Central Marine Fisheries Research Institutes. So they have developed this quality of the fish. Now this fish can be used in developing marine aquaculture. Marine aquaculture means it is about developing them in the oceans, right? So they talk about oceans and all. And generally in the seas and oceans, it is developed by using cage culture. The fish is developed through cage culture. Through the cage culture, where the cages are there and these seeds are developed in that regions. Cage culture is there. So sometimes marine aquaculture is also referred as mariculture. It is also referred as mariculture. Mariculture. Right. Okay. Now, this fish is having high market demand. It is having high demand. Right. So, high demand with reference to two things. One is with reference to ornamentation. Ornamentation. And second one is with reference to consumption. Right. Now, apart from that, you should remember that the golden trevally is primarily found in reef areas in Tamil Nadu, Puducherry, Kerala, Karnataka, and Gujarat region. Reef associated, group associated, coral reef associated. Right. Aquaculture. So understand one thing, aquaculture means growing of aquatic plants and animals. I'll just define that. The moment when you say aquaculture, this definition you might have read in your geography. It is growing of aquatic plants and animals, both. It is not only animals, both. Growing aquatic plants and animals under controlled condition. Under controlled condition. For food and economic benefit. For food and economic benefit. We refer this as aquaculture. So this entire thing is referred as aquaculture. Sometimes weeds are there, grasses, weeds are there. Sometimes fish are there, ornament fishes are there. So we refer that as aquaculture. So this aquaculture can be of many types. It can be in the river, freshwater aquaculture. It can be in the estuaries, brackish water aquaculture, brackish water aquaculture. Or sometimes it can be in the oceans or in the seas where the water is saline. We refer that as marine or mariculture. In the ocean or in the seas where it is having saline water, we refer that as mariculture. Growing the aquatic plants and animals in the sea or in the oceans where the salinity is high, we refer that as mariculture. Mariculture. Now, many areas we find such. We can find them aquacultures in many parts of India. Like if you visit West Bengal and all, so there you will find them in the form of berries in West Bengal. The paddy fields are there, or small ponds which they have created, right? So we refer them as berries. And in Kerala, if you visit, you will find them in the form of pokalis. In Kerala, we find them in the form of pokalis, rice fields where they are found. Reef area means the coral reef area, rocks accumulated, the calcareous skeleton of the dead coral. Is that clear? So aquaculture, marine aquaculture. Always remember, aquaculture means growing aquatic plants and animals. Now, this aquaculture is booming up into India's economical parts. Now, this aquaculture is having huge amount of potential capacity of producing the fish. And in India, maybe in another 40 or another 12, 20 or 30 years, this aquaculture will dominate 60% of fish production in India. It is referred as one of the major characteristics to provide sunrise industry to the fishing activities, which provides sunrise industry to the fishing sector. Now, in geography, you might have read about sunrise industries, footloose industries. So, footloose industries like you can say the bakery, watches, we refer them as footloose industries, where the cost of the production do not depends on where it has been located. The cost of the price also do not depend on where it is produced. In the same way, sunrise industries are the industries which are growing very fast, like insurance, finance, hospitals. We refer them as sunrise industries, where they are having all the capacity of becoming the leader, and they can provide good returns in a short term. So such types of industries, we refer them as sunrise industries. And in India, the fishing sector has become sunrise industries mainly because of dominating of aquaculture. They may ask that, because India, when we see, India is also one of the important fish producing, both marine as well as the inland water. So we have inland waters also, we have marine also, right? So India is second largest inland water and third largest overall fish producer of the world. So such statements can be asked in the context of your examination. I'm repeating, India is second largest inland water fish producer and third largest in overall fish production in the world. A huge amount of investments are there. So that's why we find blue revolution is also, and in that the major contributor is aquaculture. Right? So remember these terms. Is that clear? So sometimes they may ask 1, 2, 3, 4 points, and with reference to which states it is found. So hence it is having huge demand, high demand in the markets, ornamentation as well as for the food, right? Then next is something called as the beast from the east. Now this phrase beast from the east is associated with extreme cold condition which is experienced by United Kingdom and neighboring areas. So it is associated with extreme cold winds which is experienced by United Kingdom, eastern part of USA, eastern part of US, that is North America, right? UK and the neighboring areas. Extreme cold winds. So these extreme cold winds, we refer them as beast from the east. Now this is the first point you should remember. Now, second point you should remember is that when we talk about the winds in geography, if you are reading your geography, we generally say westerlies, we say easterlies. So what does the westerlies mean? Westerlies mean that these winds have originated from the western side and they are moving towards the eastern side. So always remember, the winds are named after the direction in which they flow after origin. If you take easterlies, in the globe, easterlies are flowing east towards the west. Westerlies are flowing from west towards the eastern side. Westerlies, west towards the eastern side. Southwest monsoon, if you take southwest monsoon, south and the western side, originating from southwest. If you take this is east, this is west, this is south. This wind is called as southwest monsoon. So please fix this in your mind. So these winds are always named after the origin and the directions: easterlies, westerlies, southwesterlies, etc. So easterlies, which are seen in the tropical areas, which we refer them as trade winds, they originate from the eastern side and they move towards the western side. If you take westerlies, they originate from the west and move towards eastern side. So hence we say the jet streams are westerlies, west towards the eastern side. Is that clear? Now, beast from east means, so these are the winds which are moving from east towards the western side. So the origin are somewhere from the eastern side. This is what you should see. Now, blizzards are different. Blizzards are different. Blizzards are the local winds which are seen in the Arctic regions, which are seen in the North America as well as South America. Now, beasts from the east are something which is associated with geographic phenomenon. So generally, we can see them at least 6 times in a decade. It means on an average, second year or third year, every second year or third year, this beast from the east is experienced by the European countries, more specifically the western side, right? And there, the entire area is filled with the ice or snow because of extreme cold temperature which is experienced there. And this cold wind means that it is coming from Arctic. Cold wind means you should remember that it is coming from Arctic, right? So this beast from east is more specifically seen in the Arctic region. In the Arctic region. Now, don't confuse this with blizzards. Blizzards are different and beast from the east are different. So we can say during the beast from east, the blizzards become more colder and more stronger. Now, this beast from the east is associated with a geographical phenomenon called as the sudden stratospheric warming. Sudden stratospheric warming. Right. I'm using the term stratosphere. Now, when we talk about the climatology, the first layer is troposphere. The second layer is called as stratosphere. Troposphere and stratosphere. Right. Now, above the poles, in the northern hemisphere as well as the southern hemisphere, we find the cold winds rotate here in the anti-clockwise. So these cold winds which rotate in anti-clockwise in the northern hemisphere, that is west towards the east. So in the northern hemisphere, they are moving from west towards the east. Right. The same you can find them in the southern hemisphere. So these are rotating with low pressure center, and we refer them as polar vortex. Polar vortex. Now this polar vortex is a low pressure area above the poles, which is spread in troposphere as well as stratosphere. Right. So you might have heard about this polar vortex. Cold wind which is rotating above the poles in the northern hemisphere as well as southern hemisphere. So we refer that as polar vortex. Now understand this. It's not a rocket science, very simple one. Because of the geology of that area in the northern hemisphere, that is, if you see the Arctic region, ice below that ocean and surrounded by land. So land and water contrast is more in the north. So we find land area on both the side, and then we have ocean. Above that, ice deposits are there. So geology of the Arctic is different from Antarctic. If you see Antarctica is a land, and above the land we find the ice deposit is there. But Arctic is totally different. So because of its geological aspect and because of the change in the composition of atmosphere, sometimes the warm air enters into the stratosphere. Now they will never ask you how it enters. If it is your geography optional, then it needs more amount of decay. So we say it is the waves which are entering into that. So warm waves of hot air enters into the stratosphere, and this makes sudden heating of the stratosphere. It makes sudden heating of the stratosphere, not the first layer, the second layer. Sudden heating of the stratosphere, where the temperature reaches to more than 50 degrees centigrades. So the temperature increases to more than 50 degrees centigrades. More than 50 degrees centigrades in a very small period of a time, 5 to 10 days. It's a temporary phenomenon. It's a very temporary phenomenon, not the permanent one. So in the span of 5 to 10 days, when the warm air enters there, the temperature of the stratosphere increases to more than 50 degrees centigrades in a very small span of 5 to 10. Now the impact of this when the temperature increases, so this reduces the polar vortex velocity, so it makes the polar vortex weak. Now remember, polar vortex is extreme cold wind. Which is rotating at higher altitude. Now, as the polar vortex become weak, it slows its rotation. And then it stops, and for a very short period of a time, it will reverse its direction. Right. So reversing its direction means it changes its direction, which was from west to the east, so changes it from east towards the western side. So if the polar vortex is strong, then the wind direction would be like this, west to east, right? But the moment when it becomes weak, it changes its direction, and it starts flowing from the east towards the western side, where it will affect the UK and the coastal regions of US. And this is referred as the cold winds which are moving from eastern sides towards the western side, southwestern sides, and we refer them as the beast from the east. Simple as it is, beast from the east. Now sometimes when these cold winds reaches towards the coastal areas of USA, so there also sometimes the pressure decreases to very low, which can create something called as bomb cyclones. Sometimes it may create bomb cyclones also. So this extreme cold conditions are referred as the beast from the east. Right. So this is very significant one. Now, the moment when you talk about polar vortex, this is what we refer them as polar vortex. Please understand this. Polar vortexes. So in geography, you are read about polar vortex, but more specifically, there will be two polar vortexes, one at the troposphere and one at the stratosphere. Right. Now here, when we talk about the beast from the east, so it is about the disruption in the polar stratospheric vortex, not the troposphere. So you should be very careful here. So this is what get disturbed. It slows and stops, then it reverses its direction. And these cold winds, they move downward and southward. So these winds, they move downward and southward. And such winds which brings extreme cold conditions, which are from east, we refer them as the beast from the east. Is that clear? So polar vortex, don't get much confused. This is the earth, this is north pole, and this is south pole. So above the north pole and above the south pole, and above the south pole, so these cold winds, we refer them as polar vortex. They are referred as polar vortex. right? And always remember that these polar vortex are also responsible for creating a type of a clouds which are associated with ozone depletion in Antarctica. Ozone depletion in Antarctica, we refer them as the polar stratospheric clouds, which are responsible for ozone depletion in Antarctica. Polar stratospheric clouds. They are also referred as nacre clouds. Nacre clouds. Is that clear? So this is what you should remember in the context of your prelims, right? So beast from east is not same as blizzards. It is different from the blizzards, which creates extreme winter conditions in UK and in the eastern part of USA. Right. Now next we move on to something called as the Mammoth Carbon Capture Plant. We refer them as the very important aspect in the context of global warming and climate change. Now here, when you are reading such topics, you should remember that carbon neutrality is very important thing. Carbon neutrality is very important thing. Now, what are the prominent things you should take care when you talk about carbon neutrality or net zero emission? One is that you should reduce carbon emission, right? Second one is focus on clean energy. And apart from that, the third one is removing of atmospheric carbon dioxide. Now, this is what you have to remember. Removing of atmospheric carbon dioxide. This is also referred as one of the geoengineering technology. We refer that as geoengineering technology. And for this, you need a technology. It is not done normally. For this, you need a technology. Right, where you have to remove the atmospheric carbon dioxide. And generally, the term given to that is, you might have read in your geography or ecology and environment. We refer that as carbon sequestration. Absorbing the atmospheric carbon dioxide, we refer that as carbon sequestration. Now, after absorbing the carbon dioxide, by using a technology, this carbon dioxide is stored. It is stored. Right. Now, sometimes when it is stored naturally in the green plants by the process called as photosynthesis, etc. Green plants, they use sunlight, they absorb carbon dioxide and store within them. We refer that as biological sequestration. By plants, we refer them as biological sequestration. Now, when we use appropriate technology and absorb the atmospheric carbon dioxide by using a technology, and then we store them in the abandoned coal mines, abandoned areas, or deep portions of the oceans, we refer that as geological sequestration. Geological sequestration. Right. Now, in the geological sequestration, the atmospheric carbon dioxide is absorbed and it is taken with some technology, with compressed water, with compressed air, and it is pushed below the Earth's surface. In the abandoned coal fields, abandoned oil fields, or sometimes in the ocean, and where it is stored. So this storage is something which removes the atmospheric carbon dioxide so that we can reach to the carbon neutrality. And for that, many developed countries are developing the geological sequestration methodology. Geological sequestration methodology. So biological sequestration means planting the trees, improving the forest covers. So we refer that as biological sequestration. Geological sequestration means you are absorbing the atmospheric carbon dioxide by using a technology. Many methods are there. So in this geological sequestration, we come across methods like carbon capture and storage. Carbon capture and storage. And then second one is like direct air capture or direct carbon capture, DAC. Direct air capture or direct carbon capture. Notice difference between these two. In the carbon capture and storage, so this capturing plant is on site one. So this is placed on site. On site means it is placed near the industries which are emitting carbon dioxide, like steel plants, near steel plants, near iron plants, where they are emitting carbon dioxide. So it is on site capturing of carbon dioxide and then storing downward. Now, apart from that, if any type of plant is placed on any place of the earth where it can absorb the atmospheric carbon dioxide, which is not near the source, we refer that as direct air capture, which needs more energy, So this direct air capture is not on site. It can be placed anywhere. From there, it can absorb the atmospheric carbon dioxide. So carbon capture and storage is on site, whereas direct air capture is placed in any part of the earth, right? And many countries have did that. So the first direct air capture plant was set up in Ireland in the year 2021, which is referred as Orca. Now recently they have set up the second plant, which is largest in the world. It is largest in the world, and this is also in the Ireland. And this plant is placed on the dormant volcano. Dormant means where it is not possible to have any type of volcanic eruption. So it is placed on dormant volcano. Right. So whenever in Delhi when we see, it is a biological sequestration. In India, we don't have any type of geological sequestration. We don't have technology for geological sequestration. So in Delhi and all, it is biological sequestration. Now, if this is stored in the water, we refer that as blue carbon. Like mangroves have blue carbon, right? So in Delhi and all forest areas, it is all biological sequestration. We don't have any type of geological sequestration in India. It is in the nascent stage, right? So remember this. So the second one, which is set up in the Ireland, is largest in the world, and they have named that as Mammoth. So Mammoth is the largest carbon capture plant in the world. And this is direct air capture. It is not CCS. It is direct air capture. And which country? Ireland. It plays an important role in carbon neutrality. And where it is placed? It is placed above the dormant volcano. Because if you are reading your current affairs, Iceland, sorry, it is not Ireland, it is Iceland. Apologies for that. Iceland. Right. Now, when you're reading your current affairs, always Iceland is referred as country of fire, because large amount of volcanic eruption takes place, and based on that we have a type of volcanic eruption called as Icelandic eruption. Icelandic eruption. Right. So where the magma reaches to the surface, and remember this Iceland is on the mid-Atlantic ridge. If you see the mid-Atlantic ridge, on the northern part, we find the Iceland is located, where the fissures always pump out the magma above that. And as it is near the poles, it is also covered with ice. So hence, Iceland is referred as country of fire and country of ice. It is referred as country of fire because of large amount of volcanic activities, and country of ice because it is closer to the North Pole. So please remember this: country of fire and country of ice. It is on the mid-Atlantic ridge, not on the Pacific ring of fire. It is in the Atlantic, mid-Atlantic ridge. Is it clear? So please remember this. Mammoth carbon capture plant, Iceland. Apologies for that. It's not Ireland, it is Iceland. Yes, Orca is also Iceland. So both are in Iceland. Orca is the first one, and recently they have developed the second one. Now, many countries are making their approach in developing, like the US is started to develop a project called as Bison Project. US is also emphasizing, USA, which is working towards many projects there. So many such projects are there. If they are in the current affairs, then UPSC may ask question on such. Always remember such points, which are very important for your exam point of view. Right. Now, next is about Gharial. Now, the moment when you talk about Gharial, so it is talking about something called as the crocodiles, right? Now, in the context of crocodiles, in India, we have all three types of crocodiles. All three type crocodiles are there in context of India. The first one is, which is very common, we refer them as the saltwater crocodile. And it is largest. It is largest. And if you take its IUCN status, it is least concern. IUCN, it is least concern. It is largest among the crocodiles. And most of the time it is in the aquatic. It is more aquatic. Largest among the crocodiles. Now the second type of crocodile which is seen in the India is something which is referred as mugger. Muggers. Now these muggers, according to IUCN status, they are vulnerable. According to IUCN category, they are vulnerable. They are vulnerable, right? Yes, Nikhil, Orca is in, right? Now they are vulnerable, right? Muggers vulnerable. Now apart from that, they are restricted to Indian subcontinent. To Indian subcontinent. They are restricted to Indian subcontinent. And the third category which are seen is referred as Gharial, which are also seen in India. Now, the moment when you talk about Gharial, understand these Gharials, according to IUCN status, they are critically endangered. Critically endangered. Right. Plus, they have long snout, long nose. It means nose. And this nose is narrow compared to the Gharials. This is narrow compared to muggers. It is very narrow. And above the snout, there is a bulb-like structure. Above the snout, there is a bulb-like structure, right? And hence, these gharials, they always show sexual dimorphism. Morphism. That is, they have unique characteristics to identify male and female. Unique characteristics to identify male and female. Right. Now, the bulb-like structure is very important. So these bulb-like structures, which are above the snouts, are used by males to attract the females. Males used the bulb to make noises to attract female. Attract females. Right. Now, this gharial is also freshwater. It stays in the freshwater. It is not a saline, it is freshwater. Now, in context of the gharial and in the news, when we see, we have very important key site for gharial conservation in India. Key site for gharial conservation, which is in the news. Which is in the news. And this is spread in 3 states. This is spread in 3 states. Along the river. Along the river. Can you identify which is this? Which is this wildlife sanctuary? So it is along the river Chambal. So it is Chambal. Perfect. Chambal Wildlife Sanctuary. Now, which are the 3 states in which the Chambal Wildlife Sanctuary is spread? Sometimes they may ask question. So it is spread in 3 states, that is Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, right? Perfect. UP. Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, UP. Now, the major problem associated in this Gharial Chambal Wildlife Sanctuary, the major problem associated in the Chambal Wildlife Sanctuary, they made a more conservation program for muggers. So in the Chambal Wildlife Sanctuaries, since from beginning, since from last 5 years, 10 years, so they reared and conserved more amount of muggers. Muggers. Now the number of muggers have grown to such a great number that these muggers are now threat to the gharials. These muggers are killing the gharials. Now these muggers, they are making threat to gharials. And this is one of the major problem which the Chambal Wildlife Sanctuary is facing. The mugger numbers have increased because of conservation and protection, and these muggers are posing threat to the gharials. And remember, gharial is critically endangered species. And if you see muggers, mugger is vulnerable species. And if you take saltwater crocodile, which is largest and it is least concerned category. Least concerned category. Is that clear? Now, next, we move on to Glyptothorax punabertri. Now, sometimes they may just ask them. Now, many times we find such questions are asked. Now, this is associated with, again, a catfish. Associated with catfish. Right. Now, this is a new catfish species discovered in Arunachal Pradesh, northeastern part of India. And the species is named after the ICR, Indian Council for Agriculture Research, and National Bureau of Fish Genetic Resources. National Bureau of Fish Genetic Resources. Right. ICR stands for Indian Council of Agriculture Research. Indian Council of Agriculture Research. Right. So named after him, in the honor of him, this has been done. Right. And this was collected from the Tunga stream, a tributary of Tisa River in Brahmaputra Basin. Brahmaputra Basin. So this is a catfish. Now, when we talk about catfish, you should remember that certain points about the catfish. So these catfish are the fish which always stays, or preferably they stay in the bottom of the lakes or bottom of the rivers. So hence we refer them as benthics. They stay downward. We refer them as benthic. It means bottom of the water. Now, if you are reading in your current affairs or reading in your geography, we come across fish like mackerels. So these mackerels are always on the surface, and those fish which are on the surface, we refer them as pelagic fish. So all the fish, we can classify them into three categories: pelagic, which is surface fish, like mackerel, right? Then we are having the migratory fish, like salmon, which is recorded as anadromous fish. Migratory fish, anadromous fish, which migrate from saline water to fresh water, which moves from ocean to the river for breeding and again come back. Example, salmon fish. Right. And then we are having demersal fish, which are found at deep water. Demersal fish, which are found at deep water. Right. So hence catfish are also benthic fish, which are found at the deep one. Apart from that, they can survive in both fresh water as well as marine water. Fresh as well as marine water. Marine water. Then they always prefer to move during the night. That is nocturnal. Nocturnal. Right. Now, in the context of India, even though there is a large prominence of catfishes are there, certain breeds of catfish are banned in India. Not all, not all. Certain breeds, certain species of the catfish are banned in India. Banned in India. Like the Thai magur fish. Thai magur fish, which is banned in India. Then along with that, we also have something called as African catfish. African catfish, which is also banned in India. And it is also referred locally as theli fish. Theli fish. And then we also have one more type of the catfish, which is in the news and which has been also brought. We refer that as the suckermouth catfish. Suckermouth catfish. And this is also referred as tank cleaner. Tank cleaner. Now, these are the catfishes which are banned in India. The commercial farming of catfishes, Thai magur, African catfish, and suckermouth is banned in India. The reason is these are the fish which eat the native fish. They eat the native fish, and by which they destroy the biodiversity. So they affect the biodiversity. And apart from that, if you take the African catfish, so it has more amount of fat content. Its fat content is very high. And they grow very fast. They eat up all the things and they grow very fast. So they are cannibals and they can have an impact on the native fish. So hence, these are the breeds which are banned in India. Right. Now, Indian giant squirrel or Malabar giant squirrel, which is also in the news. Now, in India, we find many squirrels are there. But more specifically, I'm talking about the Malabar giant squirrel, right? Now, it lives in the forests and woodlands in the central and southern India. Central and southern India, like Western Ghats, etc. It eats it eats fruits, leaves, bark, seeds, and occasionally eggs and insects. It is also called as rainbow squirrel because of its magnificent colors. Its fur has many colors, right? And it is the largest squirrel in the world. Largest squirrel in the world, exclusively in the forest, where they create large amount of multiple nests. And these nests, which are constructed by them, which are developed by them, they are referred as drays. They are referred as the drays, which are at great height, right? And unlike other squirrels, Indian giant squirrels, they store the food in the tree tops, not in the ground. Tree tops. So this is about the Malabar giant squirrel, largest squirrel in the world. And its location is always, remember, it is located in the central and southern India. Now, major problem associated with this Malabar giant squirrel is due to urbanization and agriculture. Large amount of electric fences have been done. Yes, it looks like rabbit, but it is bigger one, right? So hence it is in the news because of two things. One is that its population is increasing, and also it is having a threat. So major problem associated with this Malabar giant is electrocution, that is the electric fences where they get trapped and killed. So the major problem is electrocution, which has become a threat for their survival due to urbanization and large amount of fencing which is done in that areas. Malabar giants. Now, green methanol. Right now, whenever when we talk about green methanol, so it is also referred by methyl alcohol. Right now, this green methanol or methyl alcohol, it is developed or it is produced in different ways. It can be produced by carbon dioxide sequestration or atmospheric carbon dioxide absorption, by absorbing carbon dioxide. Second, it can be developed by biomass. Biomass means residues of the plants, residues of the big trees. We refer them as biomass. And this biomass is used by a process called as gasification. Gasification. Gasification means the process is done by using small amount of oxygen or air. By using small amount of, it is burnt or it is processed by using small amount of oxygen or air. We refer that as gasification. And after this process, the methanol which is developed, we refer that as biomethanol. Biomethanol. Right. Then it is also developed by using hydrogen, electrolysis of hydrogen. Electrolysis of hydrogen. And this electrolysis is done by renewable energy source, not by fossil fuels. This electrolysis is done by renewable energy source. Renewable energy, like solar energy, wind energy, etc. So such types of the methanol which is developed, we refer that as green methanol or we refer that as e-methanol. E-methanol. Right. So this is something about green methanol. Now the very important aspect is This green methanol is can be kept in the liquid during the normal temperature. So it can be kept liquid at room temperature. So it means that it is easy to transfer or transport and easy to store. Easy to store, right? So this is some rough idea about green methanol. Important perspectives. Now, certain points which you should remember for your prelims point of view, and these are: compared to conventional fuels. Conventional means the all other fuels. Green methanol can reduce the carbon dioxide emission by 60 to 95%, reduces nitrogen oxide emission by 60 to 80%, and almost completely eliminate the sulfur dioxide and particulate matter. Completely it can eliminate that. Then it can be blended. Blended means mixed with traditional gasolines or diesels. So it can be used in diesels as well. Blending can be done, right? Now it can be used in more amount of transportation, like it can be used in the ships, vessels, etc. Apart from that, this is very important. NTPC, India's largest power generation company, has signed a non-binding MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, with Technicort Private Limited, right, to develop the green methanol production facility. And this group is of Italy. Of Italy. Is it clear? So this is something which you should remember in the context of your perspectives. Is that clear? Right. Now, this is about the term, why it is in the news, and why it is concerned with Indian perspective. Right. Now, apart from that, we have brown methanol. Sometimes they may ask, match the following. It is produced from coal and may be a greenhouse gas emitter. Gray methanol. It is produced from natural gas. Blue methanol, which is produced from blue hydrogen, right? So green methanol is in the news with reference to its major aspect in the context of global warming, and also with reference to pollution. It can be answer to these two types of the major problems, right? Then Kanwar Lake, this is also in the news. This Kanwar Lake is the largest oxbow lake. It is the largest oxbow lake of Asia. Lake of Asia. And Oxbow Lake, this Oxbow Lake is created by a river, Gandak, and this is tributary of Ganga. Gandak, which is tributary of Ganga. Right. Now, another name for Kanwar Lake is Kabartal wetland. It is also referred as Kabartal wetland. And it is the only Ramsar site of Bihar. It is the only Ramsar site of Bihar. Right. Only Ramsar site of Bihar. Right. And Bihar is in India. Bihar, Jharkhand. Right. Now, this Kanwar Lake or Kabartal wetland, it is an important stopping point for the birds which move. It is important stopping point for migratory birds. More specifically, to the birds which flow along Central Asian flyway. more specifically to the birds which flow along Central Asian flyway. It provided them the places there. So this is an area which has many birds rest there. And these birds are critically endangered species, threatened species. So very important for these birds, which are of different categories. Right. So it is an important stopway for the migratory birds. Now, this Kanwar Lake is in the news for two reasons. One is due to illegal encroachment and pollution. It is becoming a threat for the migratory species. It has become threat from the migratory species. So Oxbow Lake means when the river develops meanders. When the river develops meanders, we refer them as loops. After that, the loop gets cut off from the river, and such lakes we refer them as oxbow lakes. Such lakes are referred as oxbow lakes. Is that clear? Meandering is a process, and the oxbow lake is a landform. So never make a confusion. Meandering is a process. Meandering is a process, and oxbow lake is a landform. Oxbow lake is landform. So meandering creates oxbow lake, right? Encroachments means absorbing that area for agricultural activities, construction activities, illegally encroaching that area for construction of the buildings. Like many lakes in Bangalore, many lakes in your areas where the illegal construction of the buildings have been done, we refer that as illegal encroachments, right? So this is where the Kanwar Lake or Kabartal wetland is in the news. Kanwar Lake is also referred as Kabartal wetland. It is largest oxbow lake of Asia. Now, because of all this, it is shrinking into small size. And it is also the only Ramsar site of Bihar. Right. Only Ramsar site of Bihar. Then Dida method. Now, this is also in the news, Dida method. Now, this Dida method is a very important aspect of conserving the seeds. Conserving the seeds. Conserving the seeds. It means protecting the seeds. And this Dida method is practiced by a particular tribe called as Muria tribe. By Muria tribe. Right. Now these Muria tribes, they moved away from Chhattisgarh. They traveled from Chhattisgarh. And now they have settled in Telangana and Andhra Pradesh. Settled in Telangana and Andhra Pradesh. Telangana and Andhra Pradesh. And these people who have settled in that Godavari Valley, we refer them as internally displaced people. Internally displaced people. And they are also referred as Guttikayas. Guttikayas. Right. So this method, conserving of the seed, which is consisting of 3 layers in which the seeds are conserved. In this 3 layers, the seeds are conserved by the Muria tribes. And Muria tribes are the tribal peoples of Chhattisgarh who have moved down to the Telangana and Andhra Pradesh, the Godavari river basin, Godavari valleys, right? Practiced by Muria tribes for preserving the seeds. They are along the banks of Godavari and Sabari. And they are also referred as internally displaced people in the 2 states, Andhra Pradesh and Telangana. And they are also referred as Guttikayas. Guttikayas. Yes, certain tribal peoples are very, very important who are in the news. Right. So it is the first layer by using the Siali leaves, the normal local leaves. Then ash cover is done, and then they preferred in the sea lead. Three-layered coverage is there. Three-layer coverage is there, and this protects them from pests and the worms. And they can be stored up to 5 years, but generally they keep it for 3 years. Generally they keep it for 3 years. They have the capacity to sustain up to 5 years, but they keep it for 3 years. Right. Then Gandhi Sagar Wildlife Sanctuary. Now this is associated with relocation or retranslocation of cheetah. Retranslocation of cheetah. Now you all know that in the context of India, the Asiatic cheetahs have become extinct. In the context of India, the Asiatic cheetah is declared extinct in the year 1952. And effort to bring the Asiatic cheetah from Iran was not successful. An effort to bring the Asiatic cheetah from Iran was not successful. Later, the African cheetahs were introduced in India. And this introduction of African cheetahs in India, it is not only the retranslocation, it is intercontinental translocation. That is moving from one continent to another continent. Intercontinental. Intercontinental translocation of the cheetahs, African cheetahs, which were introduced in the context of India. Right. Now, the first batch was introduced in Kuno National Park of Madhya Pradesh. Kuno National Park of Madhya Pradesh. Now, recently they have decided that. The second place, maybe after this election and all work goes on, then they will be introducing the second group of the African cheetahs in Gandhi Sagar Wildlife Sanctuary. In Gandhi Sagar Wildlife Sanctuary, the second group of the cheetahs will be introduced in the Gandhi Sagar Wildlife Sanctuary after the selections. Right. Now, if we take the IUCN status of that, Asiatic cheetahs, they are found at present only in Iran. They are found only in Iran. Apart from that, they are critically endangered. Gandhi Sagar Wildlife Sanctuary is also in Madhya Pradesh. Gandhi Sagar Wildlife Sanctuary is in Madhya Pradesh, right? Now, this Asiatic cheetah, it is having thick coat, critically endangered, thick coat. And apart from that, it also have powerful neck. Right. And if you see the African cheetah is found in many parts, like African Horn of Africa, South Namibia and all. And this African cheetah is large in size. And according to IUCN, it is vulnerable. According to IUCN status, it is vulnerable. But recently, if you are reading current affairs, many prominent people, a group of experts in the Africa, who are also concerned about the conservation of the African cheetahs. Many African cheetahs were hunted, killed, and hence their numbers are shrinking. And hence they have approached IUCN. International Union of Conservation of Nature, so that they wanted the African cheetahs, more specifically in Horn of Africa. More specifically in the Horn of Africa. Right. So that these cheetahs to be protected. So hence they wanted to change their category from vulnerable to endangered. So they are requested IUCN to change the category from vulnerable to endangered. Vulnerable to endangered. Is that clear? So please remember this. So hence you should remember that African cheetahs are vulnerable. They are larger in the size. A group of experts recently they have requested IUCN. They have proposed that as the number of African cheetahs are shrinking, they want to make more protection and conservation. Hence, they are requested IUCN to change their category from vulnerable to endangered. So if they ask in the statement, African cheetahs, even today, they are vulnerable. A proposal is sent to convert them into endangered category. A proposal has been sent. Right. So this is about the Gandhi Sagar Wildlife Sanctuary and African cheetah and Asiatic cheetah. Right. Now this is Gandhi Sagar Wildlife Sanctuary. Gandhi Sagar Wildlife Sanctuary, where the second batch will be introduced. And the first one which has been introduced is in the Kuno National Park. Kuno National Park. Right. Now, last year it was done, 2022. It is now this Gandhi Sagar Wildlife Sanctuary. Sometimes they ask about the district. Gandhi Sagar Wildlife Sanctuary is spread in two districts of Madhya Pradesh, Mandsaur and Nimcha. Right. This forest is in Katiyar Gir dry deciduous shrub areas. And here we find the vegetations, Tendu, Palash, etc. It is also known for wild dogs called as dholes. Dholes. And it is also known for chinkara. Chinkara, otter, mugger crocodile, mugger crocodiles. Right. So this is about the Gandhi Sagar Wildlife Sanctuary. Sometimes they may ask statements in the context of your prelims examination. Right. Then the Tantiai Periyar Wildlife Sanctuary. Now this is the new wildlife sanctuary in Tamil Nadu. 18th Wildlife Sanctuary of Tamil Nadu. Factual data. Don't make much research on that. In the Bargur Hills of Erode district. This region is a part of corridor that connects Satyamangala Tiger Reserve to Malay Madeshwar Hill Tiger Reserve in the Western Ghats. So it is a very important corridor. Corridor means connectivity and the hassle-free movement of the tigers in that region. And it is also the part of Nilgiri Elephant Reserve. Nilgiri Elephant Reserves. It is having a catchment area of Pala River. And remember, Pala River is tributary of Kaveri. Pala River is tributary of Kaveri. And the major problem here is about the tribal peoples, which have been there in that areas. And they have the rights according to Wildlife Act of 2006. Around 6 tribal habitations. 6 tribal habitations are within the sanctuaries. And their rights are conferred according to Wildlife Acts 2006. Now remember, don't confuse this with the critical tiger habitat or core area of tiger habitat. Core area of tiger habitat or critical area of tiger habitat is constructed or is created by Wildlife Act of 1972. But these rights to the tribal peoples are given by the Forest Act of 2006. Settlements are allowed or is given with the Forest Right of Act. And critical tiger habitat in the context of tiger reserves is created by Wildlife Act of 1972. Palghat Gap you can find in that region. Palghat Gap, yes, you can find. Palghat Gap is where the first streams of monsoon enters there. So sometimes Palghat is also called as gateway of southwest monsoon India. It is near that region only. So where we find the Western Ghats and Eastern Ghats meets, we have Nilgiri biosphere reserves, and it is a part of that. A very good connectivity to the ecological corridors there. factual data. Right. Now, World Wildlife Day. Now, the moment when you talk about World Wildlife Day, sometimes they may ask questions with reference to a factual data. It is celebrated on March 3rd. Now, it is associated with the signing of CITES. Now, what is CITES? Conservation of endangered species, where they are having a threat from trafficking. It can be plants as well as animals, right? Poses international threat. Now, the theme for 2024 is connecting people and planet, exploring digital innovation in the wildlife conservation. So this is the theme of the World Wildlife Day 2024. Now, India celebrated this World Wildlife Day 2024 in Okla Bird Sanctuary to make more awareness in that. Okla Bird Sanctuary along with Mission Life. So Mission Life is very important component of global warming and climate change. Mission Life is to create a standard of living, to create sustainable development, to change the behavioral perspectives. So this Mission Life is already started a mass movement to create billion people in India and other parts where they can have the changed behavior in the context of global warming and climate change, which talks about conservation of the species, which also talks about changing of their lifestyles. Mission life. So it is in that area. Now, Okla Bird Sanctuary is located in UP, in Gautam Budh district, and it is also one of the important bird areas in India, where we are having 466. Out of that, it is also one such. Factual data. March 3, sites, theme, where India celebrated, and in which state it is there. Factual questions if they ask. And India has implemented sites in its Wildlife Act 1972. India has implemented sites in the Wildlife Act of 1972. Now, in the Wildlife 1972, which was amended in the year 2022, where 6 schedules were reduced to 4. Instead of 6, we have 4 schedules. And in that 4 schedule, the fourth schedule is to apply sites, is to apply the sites. So please remember this. Next is the Vantara, Star of Forest. Now, this is a private zoo, and it is having all the possibility to become the world's largest zoo. Now, the moment when we say zoo, is it in situ conservation or ex situ conservation? The moment when we say zoo, is it an example of in situ biodiversity conservation or ex situ biodiversity conservation? Zoo. Right. Now, it is launched by Reliance Foundation. Now, that is where the problems are. This zoo is referred as ex situ conservation. Many students make a mistake. It is ex situ conservation. And when you talk about in situ conservation consists of national park, wildlife sanctuaries, biosphere reserves, etc. Never make a mistake. Ex situ consists of zoo, botanical garden. Now, have you visited in Tamil Nadu? We are having the botanical garden at great height, Uti, Udakmandalam. So that is a botanical garden where we find all the varieties of the trees and plants are there. So zoo, botanical garden, they are ex situ type of conservation. Ex situ type of conservation. So in situ is different, ex situ is different. So this is ex situ type. They are taken away from some other areas and they are protected and conserved with special setting. So ex situ means protected and conserved. Protected and conserved. Not in their native areas, out of their natural habitat. Out of natural habitat. In separate setting. We refer that as ex situ conservation. So never make a mistake. In situ is national park, wildlife sanctuaries, the biosphere reserves. They are in situ. You protect them, you conserve in their natural habitats. So here you are taking out of their natural habitat, like zoos, botanical gardens, seed gardens, etc., seed banks, etc. Right. So once you understand the difference between in situ and ex situ, then the things become easy. Right. It is in partnership with International Union for Conservation of Nature plus World Wildlife Fund. So it is two important institutions are associated with that, IUCN and World Wildlife Fund. It is a comprehensive hub to rescue, rehabilitate, treatment of the animals. So hence it is ex situ type of biodiversity conservation. And it is in the Gujarat state, Jamnagar refinery, right, which is often referred as the green belt of Gujarat. So remember Jamnagar, remember ex situ, and it is rescuing and rehabilitation of that. Now this is also in the news because they made an effort to bring an elephant where they reached to the Supreme Court, and after that Supreme Court persuaded that yes, they can carry the elephant and they can bring back to this rescue and rehabilitation, because to bring the elephant from its habitat they have to get a permission from forest conservators, and there are many legal objections will be there, and they have successfully brought one elephant. They have successfully brought an elephant and they are treating in this particular area. Now such types of questions can be asked in your examination, right? Then Iberian lynx, very factual one. Iberian lynx, it is the world's second most endangered species. It is a carnivore species endemic to Europe. Endemic to Europe. Sexual dimorphic, it means that you can easily identify male and female. Male and female. Males are heavier, longer than females. It was reclassified from critically endangered to endangered in 2015. Now, this statement you should remember. So, before 2015, it was critically endangered. Before 2015, it was critically endangered. After 2015, it is referred as endangered. Endangered, right? And its main source is rabbit. Now, as the number of rabbits population shrunk, and also these rabbits were having certain disease, a large amount of disease spread in the rabbits, which become a major threat to these. And these Iberian lynx, they are the major predators of this rabbit. The numbers shrink, and also the disease affected rabbits were eaten by the lynx, and hence their population decreased drastically before 2015. Now, with the proper conservation and protection, their species number has increased. Right. Again, there is a threat with the rabbits only. The same type of threat they are experiencing. Right. So once it was in all the Iberian Peninsula, but now it is distributed only in Spain and Portugal. Spain and Portugal. And with the systematic restoration, their numbers have been doubled. So it means a strong conservation has been done here. Their numbers have increased. Now, here you should remember their category has changed from critically endangered to endangered. And now they are found only in the Spain and Portugal. And they are endemic to Europe. They're endemic to Europe. Iberian lynx. Then Rudrasagar Lake or Rudijala. Now, the moment when you talk about Rudrasagar Lake, right? So this Rudrasagar Lake is man-made lake. located in Tripura, northeastern part. It is lowland sedimentation reservoir in the northeastern hills, formed by the perennial streams discharging to river Gomti. Nuachera, Durlanavria, and Kamtilichera. Sometimes in prelims they may ask. So these are the three streams which are the tributaries of Gomti, which provides water to this part. And it is declared as Ramsar site in the year 2005. It has an iconic Neer Mahal, which is Royal Palace of Agartala. Now, many threats are there to this Rudrasagar lake. Among them, silt loads, deforestation, expansion of agriculture, intensive farming. But recently, they have found the invasive species are becoming a major threat to that area. Now, what are the invasive species which are dominantly affecting that region? Invasive species which are dominantly affecting that areas. So the invasive species which are affecting that areas is water hyacinth. Water hyacinth. So the invasive species affecting them are water hyacinth. Now this water hyacinth is native of North America, native of South America. It is native of South America. It is native of South America. And from there it has spread to many parts of the world. From there it has spread to many part of the world. Now, apart from that, apart from this water hyacinth in India is also referred as the terror of Bengal. It is also referred as terror of Bengal. Right, because of its rapid growth and spread in that areas. Because of its rapid growth and spread, it has acquired many areas in West Bengal. Many water bodies are covered by this water hyacinth in Bengal. So hence it is also referred as terror of Bengal. And this has become a major threat to this Rudrasagar lake, which is also Ramsar wetland. And also remember that this Rudrasagar lake is an ideal habitat for three-tipped roof turtle or Kachuga donka. Right. So remember this. And this lake is abundant in commercially important for many types of fish. It means it is a source for many local people, source of income to the many people here, right? Now this is that Kachugar Batuga. It is referred as critically endangered. Now sometimes they may ask the question, three-tipped roof turtle or Kachuga dongka, three-tipped roof turtle or Kachugal dongka. It is critically endangered. In Indian Wildlife Act, it is Schedule 1, and in CITES 2, it is Appendix 2. And these are the water hyacinth which has been spread here. And this is that area. So it is due to invasive species. The water hyacinth which has become a major threat to that areas. Right. Then Sirpur wetland, or it is also called as Paksi Vihar. Right now, this is also in the news. Sirpur wetland, because this is an wetland where India celebrated its International Wetland Day. India celebrated International Wetland Day in that particular. International Wetland Day was celebrated in the Sirpur wetland or Pakshi Vihar. Now, the important points about that. This wetland is situated in the Indore district of Madhya Pradesh, and it is man-made. It is man-made wetland which has stabilized and acquired near threatened characteristics from last 2 centuries. And it was constructed by Maharaja Shivraj Shivajirao Holkar to provide water supply to the cities. It is a shallow, alkaline, nutrient rich that floods during the monsoon. And it also provides economic benefit to the local people. So hence it is also a Ramsar wetland. It is also a Ramsar wetland. Or Ramsar wetland of importance there. Right. Now this you should remember about the Surpur wetland. Sirpur wetland. It is Ramsar site. Ramsar site. Along with that, in this wetland, we celebrated the World Wetland Day. Now, when is the World Wetland Day is celebrated? Every year, February 2. World Wetland Day is celebrated every year on February 2nd. Now, apart from that, one more term which is very important here is something called as WCA. WCA. WCA stands for Wetland City Accreditation. I'll just finish this. Wetland City Accreditation. Now, this Wetland City Accreditation was started from 2015 voluntarily. Now, what does this Wetland City Accreditation talks about? So, this identifies the urban cities, not the rural. It is which supports the urban areas or semi-urban areas, semi-urban areas where they make more effort in protecting and conserving the water bodies. Protect and conserve the water bodies. Water bodies. And we refer that as Wetland City Accreditation. And for the first time, 3 cities in India are included or nominated for WCA. 3 cities in India are nominated for the Wetland City Accreditation. And these 3 cities, they are having very dominant wetlands. Among them, one is the Indore, where we are having this wetland. The first city is Indore. And the second city is Bhopal, again in Madhya Pradesh. Bhopal. And the important wetland in the Bhopal is Bhoj wetland. Bhoj wetland. And the third city which is taken is a group of wetlands in the neighboring areas, and the city is Udaipur. Udaipur. So these are the 3 important cities which are nominated for the first time from India, and these are referred as the Wetland City Accreditation, which are part of Ramsar wetlands, which are part of Ramsar Convention. Now, Ramsar sites are those areas where we find it is a wetland where the water, it can be fresh water, saline water, flowing water, where the depth of water is not more than 6 meters. Not more than 6 meters. Such types of wetlands, which provides the areas with economic benefits, and which also the areas where large amount of migratory species of the birds and animals take shelter there. They are international important areas where the migratory birds species breed there. Faulting is done in that. And such types of the wetlands, we refer them as Ramsar wetlands. And Ramsar is in Iran. And it was all from 1971, and it entered into force in 1975. And it was signed in the date of February 2. And this convention is referred as Ramsar Convention. And all the identified wetlands, we refer them as Ramsar wetlands. Now, don't confuse Ramsar wetlands with one more category there called as Montrac's records. So Montracks records again is a part of Ramsar wetlands, where the wetlands are having the threat of ecological characteristics have been changed there. So we refer them as Montracks records. Montracks record is also part of Ramsar convention, and wetland city accreditation is also a part where urban wetland bodies are protected and conserved. Urban wetland bodies are protected and conserved. And three cities in India are nominated. One is Indore, Bhopal, and Udaipur. Right. Now, Pench Tiger Reserve. Pench Tiger Reserve. We have two Pench Tiger Reserves, one in Maharashtra and one is again in Madhya Pradesh. Right. So, Maharashtra and Madhya Pradesh. Now, why this Pench Tiger Reserve is in the news? It is India's first and Asia's eighth dark sky park, which is in Maharashtra. So, this is to support astronomy. Support astronomy. Because during the night, if there is large amount of light visibility is there, then the stars and other things are not clearly visible. To make more visibility of astronomy, they have made this as the first dark sky park in India to support astronomy. And here for the first time, the leopard cat has been seen. And this leopard cat is belonging to Prenoleus bengalonius, and it is the member of Philidale family. Now, the moment when you talk about Philidale family, it consists of 15 species. It consists of 15 species, and 40% of them are in India. 40% of these are in India. Are in India, right? And for the first time, it was spotted in Maharashtra. First time it was spotted in Maharashtra. That is Pench Tiger Reserve. Right. Now, this is how it looks like. This is how it looks like. And remember that it is found in the northeastern part of India, all the 7 states, and it is also found in North Himalayan states, North Himalayan states, plus West Bengal, Odisha, Odisha, and patches of Western Ghats, part of Western Ghats, right? And it is absent, completely absent in the central India. And here, for the first time, it is found in the Pench Tiger Reserve, which is very important perspective. And if you see the size, it is the size of this is same as small cat. Its size is same as small cat. It is not that large, and it is comparatively slender. Size is same as that of small cat. In Ladakh, there was a dark sky. Ladakh is not a national park. Ladakh, we find the dark sky is there, but it is not a national park. It is not a tiger reserve. That is India's first one outside the national parks, outside the protected area. So this is in the protected areas. You should not get confusion. Is that clear? So that is what you are telling is correct. That is India's first, but this is in the protected areas. Right. No. Apart from that, a critically endangered lesser floricon was also witnessed for the first time here. Now, whenever when we talk about floricons, we always have three types of floricons. They are great Indian bustards, lesser floricons, and Bengal floricons. All the three are critically endangered. So this is referred as Bengal floricon. Sorry, this is great Indian bustard. This is referred as lesser floricon, and this is referred as Bengal floricon. And all three are critically endangered species. All three are critically endangered species. If you see the location of that, this great Indian bustard is prominently seen in Gujarat and Rajasthan and certain parts of the Western Ghats. And if you see the lesser floricons are found certain, their habitats are there in these regions. And if you see the Bengal floricon is found along the Himalayas, more specifically in Uttar Pradesh and parts of Assam and Arunachal Pradesh. Parts of Assam, Arunachal Pradesh, and Uttar Pradesh. The Bengal floricon, as the name suggests, it is not found in West Bengal. It is found in three states: Uttar Pradesh, Assam, and Arunachal Pradesh. Right. So for the first time, they found lesser floricon also in Pench Tiger Reserve, and this Pench Tiger also received the T+2 award in the year 2023. Now, this has been set up with reference to St. Petersburg Declaration. So, according to St. Petersburg Declaration in the year 2010, main idea was to double the tiger population. Double tiger population by 2020. Right. And then they introduced standards which has to be maintained by the tiger reserves, and they provided a category of that. We refer them as conserved assure tiger status, which was introduced in the year 2013. And this cats, it started providing award for the tiger reserves, which has increased the tiger population. So this cats provided the award along with many, which is referred as T+2 award. Sorry, T into 2 award. That is doubling the tiger population. Tiger population. And Pench Tiger Reserve, along with another two. So totally three tiger reserves in India received this T into 2 awards. And in that, two are from Pench Tiger Reserve Maharashtra and Pench Tiger Reserve of Madhya Pradesh. Right. And one more is Satpura Tiger Reserve. So this is some rough idea about the Pench Tiger Reserve. So remember about the leopard cat and also about lesser floricon. Lesser floricon. Right. So this completes the session. Don't get much stressed. Make your ideas clearly. Now, whenever you're reading about the conventions, like sometimes you come across Madrid Protocol of Antarctica. Now, the moment when you come across Madrid Protocol of Antarctica, you should not lose your hearts. You should not much stress that. So, Madrid Protocol is something which is very important in the present scenarios. The reason is this Antarctica is protected by Antarctica Treaty of 1958, but Madrid Protocol of 1991, which provides environmental benefit, environmental protection to the Antarctica, which bans the commercial mining in Antarctica. And this was signed in 1991 and entered into force in 1998 for 50 years, that is 2048. Now, Antarctica is protected from environmental protection, that is commercial exploitation has been stopped here till 2048. Now, the problem is what after 2048? We don't have anything beyond that. So we have not reviewed that. We have not made some changes. So you have to be careful in knowing such data, because Arctic is already exploited. Now, maybe after 2048, if it is not renewed, then it can also be a problem for Antarctica's vegetation. And already we are having many issues with that. Arctic amplification, Antarctica amplifications, all these are there. So keep those things in the mind. Apart from that, also we are having many conventions like Stockholm conventions. We are having Minamata conventions. We are having Notre Dame convention. We are having Basel conventions, right? You should categorize them. What are these Basel conventions? What is this Rotterdam conventions, right? Then how they are relevant in the present context. Then when you move on to biodiversities, what is CITES? What is CMS? Then protocols like Nagoya Protocol, Cartagena Protocol. What is Cartagena Protocol? What is Nagoya Protocol, etc. So make a listing of that. Don't get much stress. Understand there and segregate them for biodiversity, for global warming and climate change. When you're reading about ozone depletion, Vienna Convention, Montreal Protocol, then Kigali Amendment. Kigali Amendment for ozone depletion. Right. So you segregate them and then you read them carefully. Right. So I try to cover as much as possible. So apart from that, you find any other topics, you try to link them and make the references, revise them and keep them intact with your references. So by that, all the best who are writing the prelims, and take care. Don't get much stressed. Right. Best wishes from my side. Thank you.